Call the August 6, 2019 Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:45 p.m. Chair would entertain a motion for consideration of claims.
I would make a motion for consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $236,499.27, manual checks in the amount of $35.42, payroll and liabilities for July 22, 2019 in the amount of $452,872.22 for a total of $689,406.91.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any questions or anything we wanted to discuss on the claims?
I did not have any.
I really don't have any either, sir.
I was going to try to have something that I was going to highlight. I neglected to write it down, so I don't remember what it was. All right, then we'll just vote on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion passes. And then the next item is the Senior Endowment Fund Equipment Expenditure Request. Let's just hear from Ms.
You want me to go ahead and make a report on that? Okay. We met, the Senior Endowment Board met on July 31st this past week, and one of the things that was discussed was that their freezer cooler compressor is not working. It's a 20-year-old unit, and the air cooling unit is located in a compact room where there's very poor air circulation in there. It's currently being cooled by a swamp cooler, and it's not cool enough to keep the units cold. At one particular point in time, they almost lost the food in their freezer that they use to serve the seniors their regular meals. And they ended up getting a donated refrigerator in order to move all the food from the freezer unit into the refrigerator to save that. They also have an issue with their oven that is needing some significant repair, if not replacement. They feel that they can find the money. They're seeking grant opportunities to replace the oven. However, they are requesting funds from the Senior Endowment Fund in order to replace the cooling unit. The problem that they're running into at this point is that we do require 3 bids in order for them to get that done and approved by us according to our purchasing policy. They have received 1 bid. They were waiting on a second, and they still needed to contact 1 more vendor for the 3rd bid. But what they're hoping to do is get an expenditure approved that would be less than $30,000 in order to replace the entire compressor unit. One of the bids that they received was actually a phased bid. Upon our discussion as a board, we felt it would be best that we just fix it right the first time. That bid was, I can't disclose the amount of the bid because there would be possibly 2 more coming. But we are, what they're doing at this time is that they're requesting approval from the Finance Committee to get the repairs done. And they're asking for an approval of an amount of $29,999 or less to get that approved.
Thank you. And I guess just to make clear why we're talking about this, in order for the Senior Endowment Fund to expend money in order to go to equipment, it has to actually be approved by the City Council. So when we were discussing how to do this, I think what we had concluded is any other kind of bill that comes before us, any other request for funds, comes through the Finance Committee. Then if we approve it, gets approved by the Council as a part of the agenda. So that's why we're kind of talking about that. So I would entertain a motion for approval of an expenditure from the Senior Endowment Fund for $29,999.99 or less.
I'll second.
Or would you move? I can't make the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I move that we approve the $29,999.99.
Or less.
Or less.
I would second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion, or did we miss anything on that?
Your Honor, I would like to point out one other thing. As part of the rules governing the endowment funds, we are required to keep a corpus of $881,000 in the fund. We have plenty of money. The corpus is actually housed under some CDs right now. They do have some liquid assets in WyoStar, and then we can transfer some money into their checking account to cover that. So this would not at all touch the corpus of the funds, which we're required to keep.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 I vote aye. Motion passes. Anything else we need to discuss?
I have nothing.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Then we're adjourned at 6.
I now call the August 6, 2019 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Councilmember Schatza will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Hancock with the invocation.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for the opportunity we have to meet as a city council and with the public here tonight. We ask that it please guide us so that we can have our minds enlightened as to the needs of the citizenry and that we can know the choices that we can make that will serve towards the betterment of the city. We thank Thee for the many blessings that we have, for the moisture we've received in the area. We ask that it please help us to be continually grateful for all that we have been given. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Would the city clerk please conduct roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilman Tim Hancock.
Here.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatza.
Here.
Councilman Corey Rhoda.
Here.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember Bailey and Councilmember Larson.
So moved.
Second.
Ooh, that was hard. So we have a motion by Rebecca and a second by Tim. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. I declare that there is a quorum present. Approval of the agenda. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented, with addition to an open container permit application received from the Boot Barn added to the consent agenda. That's last week's,
That
isn't
was
it?
last week's, yes, Your Honor.
So we'll scratch that. So the Boot Barn doesn't get two open containers.
Nope.
All right. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Borders with the motion, and the second, Councilwoman Schatza. Any further discussion? We sure the Boot doesn't need another open permit? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding any item that is already on the agenda will be given the opportunity to speak later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and to identify yourself for the record.
Good evening. My name is Johnny H. Friday, Sr. On behalf of the Northern Arapaho Tribe and the Wind River Casino, we'd like to give this a gift to you, to the City of Council, for your support for our rodeo.
Thank you.
And that's what I'm here for. So.
I'll come down there. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, here we go.
Big lens on it.
Get the right meeting, guys, yeah. this mean Rich has to write a bull at the next INFR?
Yeah. Get you on a bowl.
All right.
Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, July 16, 2019, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, August 6, 2019, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for August 6, 2019. Approval of the municipal court report for the month of July 2019. Approval of the proposed 2019-2020 Wind River Visitor Council budget plan. And open container permit applications, one from Aaron's for the Alive at 5 event at City Park on August 17, 2019 from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And the Roasters Rendezvous at the Farmers Market on Broadway between Washington Avenue and Main Street on September 7, 2019 from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Thank you. Is there any additional items requiring attention?
Yes, Your Honor. The recommendations from the Finance Committee. Finance Committee had recommended bills to be paid in the amount of $236,499.27, annual check in the amount of $35.42, payroll liabilities for July 22nd, 2019 in the amount of $452,872.22 for a total of $689,406.91, as well an approval from the for the senior endowment fund for payment of no less or no more than $29,999.99 out of the endowment fund for use for fixing their equipment freezer over there.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Schatz and a second by Councilwoman Borders. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The FORCC Committee appointment of Robert Schanelmeyer. Would the Public Works Director give us a report, please?
Yes, Your Honor. We currently have a vacancy on the Fix Our Road Citizen Committee, and Mr. Scheidemantel submitted a letter of interest. Staff feels he'd be a great fit for that committee. Robert currently works with YDOT. He's the resident engineer for our area, and we believe he'd provide a lot of expertise to that committee to help guide the use of those funds in an appropriate and responsible manner.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to appoint Robert Scheidemantel.
Scheidemantel.
Scheidemantel?
Yeah.
Thank you. Robert's fishing, or he would be disappointed how I'm murdering his name. To the FORCC Committee.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Schatz and a second by Councilman Rhoda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The year-end 18-19 fiscal health report. Finance Director report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council, it's hard to believe we've already closed out our fiscal year. So I just am here to present the report to let you all know how we closed out the end of the year. I've had lots of questions on how well we did, so I'm pleased to present the report to you this evening on how we fared. This fiscal year, the governing body approved a financial budget of $29,016,188 for all funds across the board. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started right away. I'm getting into the general fund, maybe. Uh-oh, my mouse doesn't. Okay. So I may need an IT assistance here. I'll go ahead and keep talking, though. So I did provide or email a copy of an amended report out to you late this afternoon. As I was reviewing it, I found just a small change that I wanted to make sure that I could provide you with accurate information. So starting with our general fund, of course, the general fund is our primary operating fund for our city. And it is used to account for all revenues and expenditures of most of the tax-supported activities of the city. And it makes up about 42% of our overall budget. Thank you. You're awesome. Happy birthday, Adam.
Happy birthday.
So the amounts that are referenced on the slides presented include both operational and capital revenues and expenditures, as well as budget transfers. The general fund consists of most of our operations outside of water, sewer, and sanitation funds. We have a few fiduciary funds that we manage as well, and then the air service minimum revenue guarantee is a big one for all of us as well. So I will touch base on some of these funds. Seriously having technical issues here.
Just moving up there.
I think your mouse is on the big screen.
Oh, is it? There we go. Thank you. So at the close of the quarter, our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $222,462. The council did approve budget transfers from this fund of $215,986 for air service, $24,000 for economic development, and then $284,606 to the airport fund to cover both operational and capital expenditures. The $986 change that I made this afternoon was to cover, to appropriately report the amount of the budgeted transfers for air service. It should have been $215,986 versus the $215 that I sent out in the original packet. The amount transferred to the airport fund was actually $284,079. So this reflects a difference of approximately $527 less than what we actually projected. So we projected quite closely. Some outstanding items to consider. So while we're sitting at a $222,000 overage in the accounts, we are still awaiting invoices from YDOT for the stormwater and the streetlight portion of the North Federal Construction Project from June. And I did go back and calculate our average payments that we made to YDOT throughout the year, and it was $182,851. So those expenditures are, of course, going to happen now this fiscal budget year, but that's why we see a bit of an overage in the account from last year. One important item that I wanted to point out is that we did appropriately budget for the YDOT construction project, and we did place funds in reserves. While we did transfer some of the funds from reserve this year, we still have $547,827 in reserve accounts to help fund and finalize out the project this year. Okay. We are also waiting in the general fund for grant funding from the Federal Land, Water, and Conservation Fund in the amount of $117,940 to close out the splash pad project. And I think that it's important that we let our governing body and our general public know with some of the issues that we've been dealing with the splash pad recently. We have not released the retainage to the contractor yet. So we are still holding a retainage of $28,500 to be paid once all of the issues have been satisfied with the splash pad. The next fund that we have is the airport fund. So at the close of the year, the airport fund required a transfer of the $284,079 from the general fund. Staff did transfer $93,105 from our PFC, passenger facility charges, to offset costs associated with capital projects. We worked quite closely this past year with the FAA and with Javiation, our aeronautic engineering firm, as far as getting our PFC applications, some of our previous one closed out, and then getting up to date and reported on all of our current past projects. So we were able to transfer $93,000 from those funds this year. We did budget that we would be transferring $260,000 excuse me, let me read this. Okay, so this left a deficit of $166,801 in the airport fund, which is the amount of grant funding that we have outstanding, a reimbursement from the General Aviation Airport Project. So we spent money, but we have not received our 93.75% reimbursement back on that project this fiscal year. The council did approve the budget reflecting in the transfer of $284,606 from the general fund, and then we budgeted that we would be transferring $230 from PFCs. We really only transferred $93,105. So this allows us to utilize the remaining balance in the PFC revenue account for future projects, and we did budget that we were going to use all of it this next fiscal year.
Honor.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, with this outstanding grant reimbursement, is that going to appear on the next budget, or is this going to still be able to be closing out? We're not going to be talking about that next budget, are we?
Your Honor?
Yes.
We will be talking about it next budget.
Okay, that's...
Yeah. Once June 30th comes around, we cut off all revenue. We have to have a place to cut off revenue and expenditure. So it'll look like we'll have a little bit more next year, but realize that we spent the money this year. Are there any other questions on that? No? Okay. Moving on to the water fund, the total budget for the water fund is $3.9 million. Year to date, the revenues exceeded expenditures by $659,753. As with the general fund, we're going to see this in the water and the wastewater fund as well. This does include capital projects, and we will be receiving additional invoices from YDOT for the June billing. We have not received that yet. So that is going to close the gap on the large difference that we're seeing in the water fund. We are holding $784,495 in reserves for the YDOT project again this year. So as we're seeing more expenditures coming across for this year, we do have the funds set aside to help pay for that. So while we have the $600,000 it appears that we made, we also need to complete the final phase of the Riverton water supply project in the next 2 budget cycles. We also have the pending Cowboy Lane project that needs to be paid for out of the water fund. And then in the near future, we're also going to be faced with a system-wide meter replacement project priced at approximately $2 million. Staff has applied for some grant funding for that, and we are awaiting responses on how much and hopefully if we receive and how much we will receive to help fund those projects. But right now, our future projects are in excess, over the next 2 years, are in excess of $4.5 million. So that $622,000 will need to come in handy in the next year or two. So in the wastewater fund, the total budget for that fund is $2,482,000. Our revenues did outpace our expenditures by $264,312. Again, it's the same story with the water fund and the wastewater fund. There are still June expenditures for North Federal that we need to pay. We are holding $534,120 in reserves in the wastewater fund to help fund the final phases of the North Federal project. The sanitation fund is typically our healthiest fund of all of our enterprise funds. The projected budget for that fund was $2,453,000. This year, the revenues outpaced the expenditures by $423,479. Now, interestingly enough, we budgeted for a new sanitation truck this past fiscal year. The purchasing contract has been bid and it has been awarded. However, just due to the timing of the bids and the award, the truck will actually not be purchased until this fiscal year. So while it looks like we have $423,000, $300,000 of that is going to fund the sanitation truck. The budget was improved also this year to transfer $21,000 from cash to assist with funding with the truck, but since we ended up with $423,000, it will not require that we transfer any funds from our cash or reserves to help support that purchase. Some future items that we need to consider in the sanitation fund are this long-discussed landfill remediation project that we know is coming. We don't know how much it's going to be and when we're going to be hit with it. So we just need to keep reserving some money in our sanitation fund so that we are not hit with a ginormous bill that we can't afford to pay in the future. So it's just always something to keep in mind. The final slide that I have here is the Air Service Fund, and it is funded primarily by the City of Riverton. We also have community partners with Fremont County, the City of Lander, and then we have received some money from other entities. The town of Shoshone pitched in this year. We've received some money from the Depot Foundation. So every little bit helps with keeping air service alive and well in Riverton. At the close of the year, the Air Service Fund did have a positive balance of $114,617. We do have some invoices that we need to pay. Our invoices towards the end of the year, we started receiving some interagency credits, and so I have just received a couple of invoices to pay now out of this year's budget, and they are $42,000, so they're not huge. So those credits did help with the air service budget at the close of the fiscal year. During the mid-year budget amendment, Council did approve a transfer of the $65,986 in additional funding to support air service. And these figures were also very closely matched by Fremont County and the City of Lander, and I think we would be remiss if we did not thank them and express our gratitude for their assistance in helping keep air service alive in Riverton. Also with that, I would like to thank the council, the mayor, and the council, all of you, for being so wonderful to work with our budget process, and also City Administrator Tony Tolstedt and our department heads, as well as all of our managers. They all work very, very hard to stay within their budgets. They're very cognizant of their spending, and we couldn't end on a good budget year without their help, so I'm thankful for that. And I'd stand for any questions that anybody would have.
Any questions?
Your Honor.
Thanks, Mia. Great report.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We really do need to thank our community help that we get from Lander in the county to help fund the airport. It is a great cost to the city of Riverton, and it's a great benefit. We appreciate having it, and we're thankful for their assistance. The airport Café lease agreement, Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Coming before you is a lease agreement to lease the vacant kitchen area. That's the cafe and the kitchen. Several months ago, a local group kind of started bonding together with an interest in promoting local foods and then also providing a venue for those foods to be made available to the public. This group, over time, evolved into what is known now as the Riverton Local Food Hub, and we do have some members here today representing that group. The Local Food Hub worked with staff and scoped out the area to decide if it met their needs. The Food Hub attended several airport board meetings to go over the proposal that they have for the use of the space. And on June 21st, 2019, the airport board unanimously approved a motion to move forward with a lease and to provide support to the local food hub, to utilize the cafe space at the airport. They later then directed staff to draft the lease and present it to City Council for approval. The lease that is in your packet is the result of that. In brief, the lease is a one-year lease with an optional renewal term of 1 year. It does require a $1,000 deposit that would be returned at the termination of the lease. That deposit does ensure that the facility is protected, and if we do have to go make repairs, that we can draw on that deposit. It also puts the onus on the local food hub to comply with any regulatory requirements related to selling and vending food in the area. They have to get the necessary permits and approvals to do so. It does require them to have an insurance policy. This insurance policy is something that has been in place for all of the tenants that have occupied the space in the past. The lease also requires a $1,000 per month payment, which covers rent and utilities. Staff worked to hone down and project the utility cost for that area. Since the cafe has been vacant for some time, we had to make some assumptions. I thank Mia Harris for her work on that. And we were able to project utilities for that space to be around $500 a month. In June, the local food hub submitted a request to the airport board to waive lease fees and utility fees for 6 months. The draft before you does not have a full waiver of both rent and utility fees. It proposes a waiver of rent only, so a waiver of $500 a month, so that the lessee helps to pay for the utility cost for that space. Naturally, this is up to council for discussion. You have the opportunity to amend the lease if you so choose. Part of the letter that the local food hub submitted to the airport board discussed this cost-free lease for 6 months, but it also discussed working with staff to determine which pieces of equipment were functioning and to bring them into an operating order prior to the start of the lease. Scott Hammerlick, who is our building maintenance official, did a great job assessing the units there. The airport Café has been vacant for over 2 years, and so we found that there were several appliances that were not functioning. Fortunately, we've been able to work with local appliance companies, and we think that we can get those repaired and running for approximately $500. It may be a little bit more now that I've gone back and looked through some of Scott's information, but it'll be around that $500 mark. We also have found that the water heater in the area has failed and it will need to be replaced. A water heater is critical for a kitchen and cafe. We've looked at a few options. One would be to install a new tank. Another is a tankless option. That can be anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000. Those are costs that we as a city will assume and try and bring up to an operating order prior to the local food hub occupying the space. From a budget impact perspective, if we take the terms that are in the lease currently, the proposed lease will generate $9,000 of revenue a year. And in order to bring the area to operating standard, the city will need to invest approximately $6,500 to $9,500. There are attached items in your packet. I'm sure you've had a chance to review them. And so with that, we recommend that the City Council execute a lease with the Riverton Local Food Hub, and we stand for any questions when it is appropriate.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the lease agreement with the Riverton Local Food Hub for the terminal lease space at the Riverton Regional Airport.
So moved.
Second.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
I would like to abstain. Full transparency, I serve on the board of the Food Hub,
Okay.
so I prefer not to vote tonight.
Super. Does that give us a quorum?
Should still be good.
Yes. All right. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. The second, did I get a second? I thought I wrote you down as a motion.
Tim was your
Tim, were you the second?
I don't remember which one.
That's what I have.
That was the second? Good. I'm second. Good.
So we have a motion by Councilman Rhoda, second by Councilman Hancock. Any further discussion? I would like to have a little bit further thought process to the fact, can the food hub generate those dollars? Please. Could you guys identify yourself for the cameras and the audience, please?
Sure. I'm Lance Godey. I'm the current president of the Food Hub Board, and Jack Schmidt, who is our executive director. We also have other members of our board in the audience, as well as Councilwoman Borders serves as well.
Super.
Your Honor, we certainly do share kind of your concern with regards to revenues, and part of our original proposal really kind of anticipated, while we have a lot of things, a lot of ideas, and a lot of plans that we believe can get launched fairly quick and could potentially bring in the amount of revenue, not knowing for sure, it's very difficult, thus our proposal. We've had some great communications with Kyle about, kind of some options, some additional options, and I think we want to be able to entertain those options, but noting that We are receiving a little bit of assistance. It hasn't been entirely confirmed yet, but from Idea Inc. and the Depot Foundation to be able to provide us a little bit of startup funds. But we kind of anticipate that we're going to need those to start it up and to commit all of those to utility costs right away definitely concerns us. Looking at any creativity that the council can provide in, I don't know, some direction of, we want to be able to understand that we need to have a dog in the fight, put some financial commitment in, and we want to do that. And meet in the middle somewhere. I don't know if the current lease proposal is exactly in the middle. We appreciate the rent being deducted. That's certainly a fantastic help, but I don't know if, Jack, if you had anything you wanted to.
Yeah, Your Honor, we certainly share your concern about being able to make the payments where nobody else has been able to do it. That's not just, there's just not enough volume up there to make that thing economically viable. So that's why but it really works for our process of trying to expand local food into the community, which is very popular. The more we talk about this thing, everybody likes it. And we came up with the concept then on funding. We formed the Riverton Local Food Hub, and we came up with the concept of the Hub Club. Actually, ex-Mayor Wartness that was his idea. He ran back one day and said, well, my God, I'd give $50 just to support that. And we looked around, and if he'd do it, there'd be a lot of people, and already have. So that will be our supplementary form of financing, which we'll see. This is all new. Is the community serious enough about local food to back it and with their money? We think it will be. So that's where we are. We are all volunteers. We're formed a new thing, and it's a 501c3, so it's a nonprofit. None of us are drawing any salary off of it. So this is just, we want the primary, our primary objective is to service those air travelers up there at the airport with the best food that they can get, all local food. And at the same time, then being able to expand our local food production. Will it happen? I don't know. All we got is hands, feet, and face right now. But we got a lot of high hopes, and if you'll work with us, we'd like to work with you.
Super. So if I restate that, what we're really looking at is we got $1,000 lease per month, and half of that is utilities that will be ongoing. And so that puts a $500 burden on you guys immediately when we take the lease.
Plus the deposit.
Plus the $1,000 deposit, correct. And so.
And I think that there's just been 2 of the previous tenants had that, and 1 did not, right?
Your Honor, that is correct. The previous tenant had the $1,000 deposit. The tenant before that did not, and the reason why it was put in the lease prior, or the lease just before this one, is because there were issues with the tenant vacating the space and not leaving it in a manner that was appropriate.
And that's a real concern for me, because if I understand the concept correctly, you're going to allow different entities to come in and use the kitchen to prepare?
But there will be a kitchen manager right there with them. That's very, very strict quality controls on it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yes, sir.
Explain that to us just a little, would you?
Yeah, and again, this whole shared kitchen thing is relatively new, although it's getting a lot of momentum around the country. The purpose is the limiting factor to any business right now, no matter what it is regulation. And in the food business, my gosh, you got a pile like that you have to comply with. So one of those things that they have to do is a certified kitchen. Now, the certified kitchen is no great big deal, but there's a lot of little things, and the people in their home cannot do it. Matter of fact, a lot of our people make products right now that they're selling that they could sell to stores and restaurants with the use of a certified kitchen, and to navigate those consumer health rules. So that's the concept, to let them use that kitchen to make their product until they can go ahead. It's an incubator kitchen. When they make enough money, they can build their own kitchen or move on out on the main street or whatever. That's the concept. But we have to keep that thing in good shape for the next person. So that's why we have to have a kitchen manager there watching it and being very, very strict.
And, Your Honor, I would even point out that the certified kitchen is only one spoke. We kind of use a hub and a spoke as kind of a metaphor for what we're doing, and we have multiple spokes that we want to build out from the system, and that's only one of those. So there's other revenue streams. Certainly even the cafe or the food availability is another spoke to provide access to the airport travelers and community members, for that matter. There's many other things, even connecting and servicing with local Department of Agriculture, local Small Business Administration. All of those things are part of kind of that service project of helping link people to the services in the community, whether it's food services, whether it's production services, business services, any of that type of stuff.
Your Honor? I think this is a great idea. I think it could be really successful. I'm in the same boat as the mayor with costs and how we're going to pay that. With a kitchen manager who would be paying that person's wages.
It's a volunteer position.
It would be? Yeah. Okay.
All our positions are volunteer. We want this to become economically viable. In order for anything to be successful, especially in agriculture and food, it's got to be economically viable, it's got to be environmentally sustainable, and it's got to be socially acceptable. We want to hit all three of those points, and then we see ourselves within the next few months being in that economically viable state.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
With the local food hub, do you have to carry any kind of insurance over that kitchen up there or anything like that?
God, I mean, it's there. We've got the quotes on it right now. It's compliant. Kyle gave me all those things.
Yeah, we have a requirement as part of the lease to carry minimum.
By the way, it's $142 a month.
142.
Yeah. So that's about 25 orders of biscuits and gravy.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I share a kitchen, but we don't share the cleaning. She would tell you quickly that I'm not the best cleaner of the kitchen. And so that's my concern, that we have a product that we don't get down the road and not have it sustainable and meet the standards that are required of us. And as long as we have that in place, and then the other thing that comes to mind, the sustainability of that, and to bring those people in and out, the access to it, that should be able to be worked out. But we have to. Do you have an idea?
There is an exterior door on the west side of the terminals where people coming in and out of the shared kitchen would not have to come through the terminal itself.
Perfect. So that was my other thought. Does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, the other thought that is Mayor Warpness paying $50 a month, or is he?
He's already. I got his money in my pocket.
It's per year.
We'll get him next year too.
Yeah.
So I'm in.
You bet. Well, that's kind of what I thought. With kind of looking around. Yeah. We got 2 weeks right here.
Okay. So when you figure out how to do that, count me in. And it sounds like a great idea.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any other discussion? Let's find where we are on the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Well, Carla's not voting. I wanted to hear your voice.
Well, I would vote yes if I could.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Public hearing to consider the ordinance number 19009, first reading, Riverton Municipal Code, RMC, Chapter 6.08, Article 2, Revision registration of dogs. City Clerk's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor and Council, before you tonight for your consideration on the first of the 3 readings is an ordinance that would amend Chapter 6.08 of the Riverton Municipal Code. The minor revisions that are suggested through this ordinance will add the definition section back into Chapter 6.08, which is titled Dogs and Cats. The definition section was removed in 2013 for, I think it was a mistake. It was for no apparent reason that we can find. Staff is also suggesting the removal of section 6.08.075, which is a definition within Article 2, which was what actually caused the question of the ordinance. The definition of animal was defined as any dog or cat. However, Article 2 of Chapter 6.08 is only the registration of dogs. Cats are not required to be registered. So with that, we replaced all the references of animal with dog, as dogs are only required to be registered. And staff recommends adoption of Ordinance 19-009 on first reading. Thank you.
Thank you. The council would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Schatze and a second by Councilman Hancock. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. I declare the public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statute with other applicable laws. I would ask that the individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the records. Okay, it's up to you 3. Which one wants to talk? Okay, seeing none, let's close the public hearing.
I would move we close the public hearing, Your Honor.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Hancock and a second by Councilwoman Schatze. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 19-009 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Schatze and a second by Councilman Member Rhoda. Any further discussion?
Your Honor,
Please.
can I read that ordinance by title only before you call for a vote?
And it was in gray, too. Please, would you do it?
Thank you. Proposed ordinance number 19-009 on first reading. An ordinance amending Title VI Animals to revise Chapter 6.08 Dogs and Cats, Article 2 Registration of Dogs, and to establish Section 6.08.010 definitions of the Riverton Municipal Code and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilwoman Schatze and a second from Councilman Rhoda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passed. A memorandum of understanding for commercial air service improvement plan. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Last month, the City Council authorized FAST to go into negotiations and finalize terms of an MOU between the State of Wyoming and the City of Riverton. I'm happy to report that FAST has done that, and the MOU before you today is the finalized terms that they were able to produce. Really, this centers on commercial air service from January 12th moving forward. As we discussed last month, the State of Wyoming is changing the manner by which they support commercial air service for several communities in Wyoming, and it's going to be through the capacity purchase model. The MOU before you has Riverton opting into the capacity purchase model or program, and by consequence, we will start receiving commercial air service with SkyWest Airlines. It's interesting to note that while we are entering a new program, the funding mechanism is relatively similar in that the community has a responsibility of 60% of the revenue guarantee for the commercial air service provider. Let me back up. 40%. I did it again.
Let's try it again. Can you back up again?
The state's going to take 60 and we're going to take 40. 35,
25.
Your Honor, if it's okay, I'll just read my staff report for the rest of it. I apologize, Your Honor. It is similar in the sense that it is a 60-40 cost split, and let me be clear, our community has a 40% share on that. Rather than reconciling on a weekly basis, which we have done with Denver Air Connection, we will be doing it quarterly. And another difference is that we will not be making the direct payment to the airline. YDOT will. So YDOT makes the full payment, and then we reimburse YDOT. So it's a little bit reversed in that order. From a budget impact perspective, this falls in line with what we had budgeted. The costs for SkyWest include actual block hours, and that's the time the aircraft moved from chalk to chalk. And there's a rate that they apply to each hour that they're flying the service. And then it also includes actual fuel costs. However, in this contract that YDOT negotiated, there is a not to exceed component to actual fuel and actual block hours. And for this first 6-month component, it will be $759,040. So Fremont County's obligation to this total is a little over $303,000. That will be in addition to what we have already agreed to pay Denver Air Connection, who will continue to provide service to January 11th. So there will be seamless transition of commercial air service. We have great air service now. It will continue to January 11th. Starting January 12th, SkyWest Airlines will take over and will participate in this new program. With that, at a 60-40 cost share, I recommend that we execute this MOU and start service with SkyWest.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the MOU between the City of Riverton and YDOT Commercial Air Service Improvement Program.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Borders and a second by Councilwoman Schatze. Any further discussion?
Your Honor.
Tim.
I guess, Mr. Butterfield, what's going to happen with Denver Air Connection? I mean, are they going to even be in business anymore? Are they going to be able to do that, or?
Your Honor, Denver Air Connection has a very successful charter company, and the parent company, Key Lime, is very successful on the cargo side. But from a commercial passenger side, they've picked up 2 new communities, recently one in Nebraska, another in Colorado. So they'll continue to expand their commercial operations alongside their charter. It just won't be in Wyoming at this time.
That's all I needed to know. Thanks.
Your Honor.
Yes.
So I know I said immediately once it's signed. So when can people start looking at those flights? Would it be immediately? Or?
Your Honor, Councilwoman, that is a great question. Once the MOU is executed, we'll give word to SkyWest, and then the background logistics of getting the fares to the public will take a few weeks. We're hoping within a month or so we'll start seeing fares on the market, but I will follow up on that when I have a firm date.
Thanks.
Mayor, just to kind of follow up with that a little more. So at the very end of their packet here, is this the scheduling times that they're looking? So on the frequency, the D I'm understanding is that daily?
Your Honor, that is correct.
Could you tell me what's the D236 and the D6? Is that 6 times a week or?
Your Honor, Councilman, that's another great question. When we were working with YDOT on the schedule for this, one thing we wanted to do was keep costs in order. And there are certain times of year and certain days of the week that we don't see a lot of volume as of yet. And so if you'll notice in your packet, the second table, it shows months of the year, and then it has those the 2D times 236. What that represents is for the months of January and February, we'll run a reduced schedule. Basically, we're dropping the flights that had low load factors, so we're not paying for seats that won't be filled. Once the season starts picking up, so March through December, we'll run the schedule every day of the week. You'll notice that the 6 represents a bit of a changeover because of Saturday, Sunday schedules, but for the most part, that's what we're doing right now anyway. So in January, February, we're excluding Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays for the direct midday flight. We find that those are low load flights, and we want to save some money while we're building momentum under SkyWest. When seasons change, that will operate normally, basically March through December, but during those low periods, we'll restrict those flights.
Thank you.
It also needs to be pointed out that we're switching from a 30-passenger jet to a 50-seat jet. And so we'll have more capacity, and so we're trying to block out some dates so that we don't have to pay for empty seats. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. MOU of understanding, or memorandum of understanding MOU for air surface funding. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. This MOU has come before you multiple times in the past. Basically, this is a mechanism wherein we receive funds from Fremont County and Lander. The MOU establishes what we've called a minimum revenue guarantee subcommittee. Basically, we want to give Lander and Fremont County the opportunity to see invoices and participate in the cost portion of this project since they're contributing funds. The MOU is relatively the same. However, we had to make some changes because of the addition of SkyWest Airlines. Previously, we referenced Denver Air Connection alone. This one does include SkyWest and the MOU that you just executed or approved, I should say. We also included an exact dollar amount of $215,000. This was something that I think helps clarify the agreement and was something that our funding partners wanted to see in the MOU. Otherwise, it's pretty similar. The other thing was the county commission. This is a great idea. They want FAST to come, and really the fiscal agent to come and give a report to the elected officials in the other communities on how we're doing specifically to the fund. So I believe it's once every 2 months, so 6 times a year, we're going to go to those other funding partners and say, here's how your money's performing. Either we're running out too quick or we're doing great and we're not running out very fast at all. So with those changes, we recommend that you execute this memorandum of understanding. Lander will consider this next week, and the county commission will consider it in 2 weeks. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the MOU between the City of Riverton, Fremont County, and the City of Lander to reestablish the minimum revenue guarantees, the MRG subcommittees.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hancock and a second by Councilwoman Schatze. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I would like to praise the FAST committee for their hard work on this subject. We have been in many a meeting on bended knee begging for money, and this is a great arrangement for the City of Riverton. It's still going to be difficult on those contributing partners and on the City of Riverton. This is a substantial amount of money for economic growth, and it's vital. We really do need an airport. You may think you don't use it directly, but you'd be surprised how many things come to the airport. So I appreciate the fast service, and I hope you pass that on to them. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Ayres Associates contract amendment. Community Development Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ayres Associates of Cheyenne, Wyoming contracted with the City of Riverton for professional services in October of 2018 to perform a comprehensive master plan for the city. The original contract amount was $95,000 and included 14 task items. In May 2019, Ayres Associates delivered a draft copy of the master plan. The consultant compiled the plan based on data gathered during the public engagement meetings, focus group meetings, a meeting with the Idea Inc. Board of Directors, and a public engagement survey provided on the city's website. The Planning Commission certified and approved the draft master plan at their June 20th regular meeting in accordance with state statute. The proposed plan was presented to the City Council at the July 2nd, 2019 regular meeting, where it was tabled until the August 13th work session for further discussion. Amendment 1 to the original contract seeks to accomplish two goals. 1, extend the contract time through October 31st, 2019, and 2, increase the project budget by $4,920. This increase is based on an estimate provided by the consultant in Exhibit A of Amendment 1 for 2 additional meetings and approximately 20 hours of additional time for potential modifications resulting from the August 13th work session. These items were not part of the original scope of services of the original contract. This project is funded in part by a $50,000 grant from the Wyoming Business Council, $40,000 from the City of Riverton, and $10,000 from Idea Inc., totaling $100,000. As mentioned earlier, the original contract amount for this project was $95,000. Approval of Amendment 1 would remain within the originally appropriated funds for the project. The City Attorney has reviewed Amendment 1 to form and did not take exception to the language contained within it. And with that, I'd stand for any questions you might have.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the amendment number 1 to the Riverton Comprehensive Master Plan contract with Ayres Associates, Inc.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Schatza and a second by Councilwoman Borders. Any discussion?
Your Honor?
Yes.
So we're planning on having a work session completely dedicated to this. This is basically for their time to be coming, presenting, talking about it, and making sure everybody's comfortable with what we're doing. If we wanted to make any changes to this, if we said, hey, we want to switch things up a little bit, do things a little bit different, this isn't going to be included in that, am I right?
Your Honor, that's correct. In the Exhibit A of the attached amendment, they delineate attending the work session via phone conference and the adoption via phone conference, and then 20 additional hours for minor modifications to the document itself that has been presented. That would not include, and this is an important key to the amendment, it would not include major modifications to, say, intersection design or conceptual ideas for the parks, which they do mention in the amendment.
So in other words, if they were thinking, oh, we've got to go and we've got to redo what we're planning, remeasure things or something like that, that's not included. But if it's basically changing a little bit of language and that sort of thing, that'd be included.
Your Honor, that's correct.
Eric, a question I have, you didn't get any comments from council yet?
Your Honor, I have not received any comments to date.
So if that continues to be the case, would this, because there's not going to be any, if there is no changes, do we stand for the cost of this?
Your Honor?
Yes.
My guess is that they do have some time associated with, one, putting together the amendment. So there may be minor costs associated with that. But yes, if we go through the work session, they'd have some time there. And then if we adopt at that time, it would be very minor.
And they're coming in by phone, correct? Not by travel?
That's correct.
So it would be my suggestion that we could approve this now or not approve it, and stand to see how in-depth those questions are. If they are not hard questions, we wouldn't incur the cost. Am I correct at that?
Your Honor, they would likely come back for an amendment for putting together the amendment because they've expended their budget as of
But what I'm getting to, if we don't use 20 hours for them going back to work the amendment, we rework suggestions by council, we would save some of that money.
That is absolutely correct.
So to try to save that money, would we be wise not to approve this, or would we be wise to approve this and then have Ayres just be judicial with their billing process if we don't make a lot of changes?
That's a great question. What I would recommend is approval of this amendment today, and then in the contract, it stipulates that they keep track of their hours so that if we need to go back and look at what they were actually doing, we can do that. And so we'll only be billed for those hours that are being worked on the project.
Okay. Tim?
I guess my other thought is, do we really need to have somebody from Ayres there? And I know that, I mean, to a certain extent, some of why we even tabled this was because we wanted more time and an opportunity to discuss it and really hash it out in terms of what we wanted to do, I mean, as a council. But I mean, to what extent do we need to have them there? They're only going to be there by phone. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't just meet together as a council with the work session and kind of hash it out amongst ourselves and see what things we like or we don't like and then pass along the feedback rather than expending a lot more with having them consult and that sort of thing. I mean, we'd be just talking about it. I think to a certain extent, even when we were looking at it, most of us hadn't even had a chance to really read it. It wasn't even working on my iPad. For some reason, the link, whenever I'd scroll down, it'd bleep out, which frustrated me. But it doesn't anymore, by the way. Thank you. I don't know how that got fixed, but so I guess that's my thought: is do we want to do this and incur this expense, or do we want to kind of get a little bit more familiar with it ourselves, discuss it, and then see from there later on if we want to have them make changes and just hold off on it?
Your Honor.
Yes.
And that's absolutely a viable option. What would happen is those hours that they've estimated to either be attending via phone conference, we could just transfer those hours and save that money without them being present during the meeting. And that would, say, give them 30 additional hours to work on any modifications that we provide from the work session.
Eric, if council met and we hashed through the report and we come to agreement that this is really pretty good stuff, we just weren't ready to say yes last time, we wouldn't incur this. Is that correct?
Not the lion's share of it, that's correct.
Okay. So they may come back with us to we postponed it, they may have some kind of problem with us postponing and taking up some of their time. But if we don't require a phone conversation even, now, the other negative to look at that is if somebody comes in with a real change and they want something done, then we had to go back and get another amendment, correct?
That's correct.
So, Tony, I see you nodding. You got an opinion?
The minor amount, there's a couple options that council, I believe, has. One is you can also table it and say, let's see what happens and what changes we want to make, because as the mayor points out, there is the opportunity to say, well, we might need something bigger, and that's a lot. So you do an amendment, and then you go to another amendment. There is that. There is some expense that would, if approved right now, would happen regardless of whatever you do, which would this would authorize, which is the amount of money it took, or amount of time cost to put together the amendment that you see before you right now. But that would be the extent of it. So you do have your two options. One is you can say, if I'm understanding, if I'm sensing what council is looking at, you have the option of saying, we approve the amendment, and with general direction that, listen, we're going to have this meeting, we don't need anybody else there except staff, and we're going to hash this out, and then we'll tell you what we need and determine it at that point. Or you can say, well, we table it and determine what we need at the meeting, and then we go forward with whatever amendment is proposed at that point. At the end of the day, they largely accomplish the same item, Your Honor.
Any other?
Mayor, I have just two quick questions. So the 20 hours of additional time, is it safe to assume that them putting the amendment and everything, that time would be taken out of that 20 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's correct? Okay. My other suggestion is I do kind of agree with Tim. I think that if we could sit down and just chat and then bring them in and say, hey, these are the things, and we're prepared that way, rather than I would hate for us to have them come via phone conference and they just sit there and listen the whole time because we're all going back and forth, yet we're paying them to sit there and be on the phone with us. So I don't think it would be a bad idea to maybe table it and then have our discussion and reach out to them and say, hey, these are the changes we think. We can easily keep it under the 20 hours. Obviously, we'll have to take care of this amendment, but I think it'd be less work that we we could get their professional opinion while we're going, having our discussion about it. But I think if we just took our time and then came to them and said, hey, these are our concerns, be them major or minor, we could save them time and most likely ourselves some money that way.
Okay. I would come to the conclusion that I don't think the council assumed that by delaying and their more understanding of the plan was going to be an additional cost. And so I would suggest that we keep it at a minimum. And if that is Ayres not attending, and we go to the work session and see if there's any big problems, and then we restart the conversation with Ayres of what our questions are, what are they going to additionally cost? Will that make better sense?
Yes, Your Honor. I think I understand what you're saying. Your Honor, at that point, you would probably want to, I think we would want to table it.
I don't think the council understood at the time that they made the motion to, and was it a tabling motion? I don't, did it table? So I don't know that we understood that it would be an additional cost at that point. I do understand that Ayres should be paid for its work. And so, that's only fair. And with council now assuming that they could get together and walk through that and make those decisions and try to save it some of that additional. Eric, remind me what that, my screen went black. What is the cost? $4,000?
$4,920.
Almost $5,000. So if we could save that, we would appreciate that. And I think that's what we're trying to say. So if we could meet together without them and see if we're all right with what's in the packet, then we'll make the motion to approve it. And if they need to bill us for additional hours, they'll have to. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I move then that we table the amendment to the MOU until, I guess, do we have to have a specific meeting? I guess it'd be the
until after the work session, until the meeting following the work session.
Okay, until the meeting following the work session. But I think with the understanding, and make sure Ayres knows this, we're not going to leave them in the lurch and not pay them what they're due for what they did here, I suppose.
Can't we clean that up in the next meeting? Can't we make that, bring it off the table in the next meeting and pass it?
Yes, Your Honor.
My assumption is everything is fine without maybe a few comments from the council. We're not going to change a lot of things. No one's even made a request of it. So we have a discussion amongst ourselves, and let's say we want them to include a statement that says these are not full requests, they're suggestions, so people don't think that in 5 years we're going to get 2 new parking lots in the park. Okay, that's my concern, and so that's going to be very minimal additional work. And so at that point, couldn't we make that motion and pass it that same evening?
Your Honor, yes. It's looking like that meeting is going to be a special meeting. It will end up a special meeting anyway for a couple other items. So
we'll just turn it into a special meeting. We would be able to if the council decided to pass it right there. Okay. Eric, you okay with that?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a motion. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
So this is an amendment? This is what we're doing?
Motion to table the amendment until the next regular meeting after our work session.
Okay. By Councilman Hancock, and we have a second by Councilwoman Borders.
Your Honor, point of order. I believe we were able to work on it on the 13th if you want to. So it would be it could be tabled until then.
Until the 13th.
And then you could just bring it back up. If you approved the overall plan that was presented, then you could bring the other one up and and then you could vote on it at that time.
Okay, so moved with that change.
Okay. So we've tabled it to the 13th, and we have a motion for that from Councilman Hancock and a second from Councilwoman Borders. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Amendment, a motion, whatever it was, passed. Future legislative items, review and discussion. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be relatively brief. At the recent WHAM conference, the mayor and I attended, and part of the WHAM conference is working on the legislative agenda, and those are items that are presented from the different municipalities and presented to the body of WHAM in order to gain support, and then WHAM works on those as a legislative arm for the cities. Different cities, such as us, have in the past taken our own particular stances on different items and worked on different items. What you have before you today is the beginning of maybe a more defined approach to our legislative process. And so I wanted to have a brief discussion with you about it. What you have before you are items that are supported by WHAM and a proposed tier system that we are using. One of the things I want everybody to keep in mind as we look at this is that the items that are presented for you are largely to form. There are certain specific items that maybe we don't support, but generally the idea is for us, specifically the mayor and I would the mayor is the current WHAM voting delegate, and I also attend those meetings to work on legislative items as we're moving. So the items that you have provided before you are all approved by WHAM with the exception of the Tier 4 items. Tier 1 has 3 items in it. These would be actively support items. Actively support items would largely be those things that the mayor or I would actively write letters, promote, even testify for. We have done these in the past, but we haven't been very formal about it in terms of involving council. We'd like to see that change a little bit so everybody, A, is a little more educated, and B, we have greater resources and minds around the table working through the problem. The first item is a resolution. It's not a revolution. It's not a revolution, but I'm not giving away money either.
60-40,
so 60-40, 70-30. We're keeping a tally.
Beatles.
Supporting local air service. Generally speaking, what we would want to do with this and this associated legislation is to support any efforts to improve and sustain our air service. This is something we've already been talking about tonight. It is we have a very good understanding of what this is. The second item is a resolution supporting greater financial independence and authority for Wyoming cities and towns. Generally speaking, the cities in Wyoming receive the most percentage from the state and have the least ability to raise their own funding and to control their own funding up or down with regard to other items other than rates for water, sewer, and sanitation. That becomes a little bit of a challenge. We see this all the time. We've talked about it in budget. We talk about the direct distribution. That's what we're talking about. Now, while this particular resolution did come out of Laramie and specifically denotes certain actions, what we're proposing is to support those general items that give municipalities the ability to kind of choose our own destiny a little bit, to make our own decisions at a local level, more local control. That is a very broad statement, but generally speaking, we want to talk, it will include items such as quarter and fifth and sixth penny authorization legislation, how that is worked. Does it have to be countywide? That's a conversation that's ongoing. So we want to make sure that we have the ability to do different things. We have the authority for the city. And then the third one is resolution supporting municipal stormwater enterprise funding. This has been an item that has been coming back. And basically, we currently pay stormwater funding out of the general fund. Okay, well, that's a little bit of a challenge because it operates more like a utility a lot of the time. This legislation would provide cities the ability, not the requirement, but the ability to treat stormwater more like a utility. That way it would be its own fund, just like you see the sanitation, water, and sewer. We've talked a little bit about this. You've read about it a little bit, but that will come back up. Those are the 3 items that we're suggesting for active support. Other items for tier 2 support, which is a support but probably wouldn't be as active. The reason we have a tier 2 as opposed to let's just support everything is we have a limited amount of time that we can do this and a limited amount of staff time money to go travel, all of that. And we can't respond to every single thing that's out there, and I'll get to why in a second. So the Tier 2 support is, as items come up and they seem to be important, if we can write a letter, or they send a form letter for support or things like that, or we can make a phone call, those things are pretty easy. It's a utility. Those include a resolution to create a utility and other municipal service lien authority for municipalities and joint powers board, essentially allowing collection of debt through for utilities. It helps with that. Why? Simply put, it's not really fair for bad debt to be put on the backs of other ratepayers, and giving the cities the ability to properly collect that is appropriate. Resolution supporting payment in lieu of taxes, you'll hear us say PILT. A lot of people have heard that before, but PILT for state-owned properties, that's something that has come forward. Whether or not that has a lot of legs, we don't know. However, it's another matter of how funding flows to municipalities. A resolution supporting statewide anti-discrimination legislation is one of the social items that has come through the WAM process. And a resolution requiring vendors in Wyoming Department of Revenue to share responsibility with municipalities and counties for sales tax collection errors. Again, just like with PILT, it has to do with how money is collected and how it flows through, making sure that while we don't want to just put everything on the state, we also don't want it to be also on the cities as well. And that is, those revenues are items that flow directly into the general fund and pay for our police services and the like. And that's one of those funds, as we talked about during budget, that becomes challenging. And Tier 3 is a disregard or neutral category. Right now, there's nothing really in there. Oddly enough, that will grow to be one of the bigger ones. Why? Because some of them won't have anything to do with us. So if I did this at the end of the legislative agenda, when everything's been voted on and everybody goes home, that is going to be a huge category, because some of them won't have anything in the world to do with us. But and then Tier 4 is an opposition. And obviously we could tier the opposition, but the opposition ones are ones that we probably really want to say this is a challenge. The only one that is denoted is not a resolution, but rather a conversation that is currently going on, that we're hearing about, that we're receiving information about through WAM, which is a discussion about limiting or removing a municipality's ability to exercise franchise agreements in their own right of way. That's a lot of money for us. And it's a lot of money that goes to your general fund. And whether or not this has any amount of legs, we don't know. But this is one of the items that, one, limits local control, and two, hits the city directly in the general fund. And we want to say this is probably not appropriate. We want to know who is operating within the right of way and have an authority there. And so we want to be on top of it. It is something we're tracking, and we do have different amounts of support for that through WAM, and it is something that they are very much so on top of. Those are the ones that are before you right now. And the reason I say we don't have enough staff time to cover all of those is not true. We could cover all of those, but as soon as we get close to the legislative session, we'll have items, everything from publishing requirements to, which is a conversation we've had at length, that costs us a lot of money, to we'll track at least 10, 15 other bills, and they come up and then they hit a committee and then they get modified and then you have to track that. So this list ends up growing. This is the beginning, and what our intent is to do is, if you approve the general agenda to form, is to not only update you on this through WAM, but as things are going on, to let you know. That way we can receive feedback. That's going to be difficult when the legislative session, we won't be able to convene the council and say, hey, what do you want to do here? At some point, the mayor and I are going to have to work together and say, okay, where are we at on this particular change? Can we live with it? And we'll have to work with WAM that way. So we would be updating you, but what you have right now is the proposed legislative agenda and in its tiers for your consideration. I know that's a lot of information, and we've attached a lot of information, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
The resolutions, are those just samples of what we might end up?
Those were, oh, sorry, Your Honor, if I may, those are resolutions that were submitted to WAM through the municipalities for consideration. So they ended up voting on those. This isn't everything, because one of them was a resolution supporting state local participation in state insurance. Well,
Yep.
You know, that's not something. Huh?
Familiar with those.
Yeah, we're familiar with those. That was approved as a position, more of a position statement by WHAM, because that's already been authorized now. So those were through WHAM, and different organizations can submit it. One of the important things for council to consider is in future years, if we have these items come up when we say, listen, we really want to chase item A, B, or C, we propose a resolution, and then we really push that resolution. We submitted on the state insurance, but in the meantime, from when we submitted to when it was voted on, it went our way.
Right.
And there'll be a lot of legislation that we won't necessarily see eye to eye with WHAM. So we'll have to have those discussions and get a feel for where those are going. Last legislative session, they were trying to, Teton commissioners were trying to stop a public school in their county and make them apply to the county for approval, and that WHAM was for that, and the rest of us were against it. Isn't that the case? WHAM was supporting that, and that all 5 of our legislators were opposed to it.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. I think that's correct, Your Honor.
So there'll be movement there, but Tony's just trying to give you an idea of what the legislative support would be from WHAM. So, are you sufficiently?
If council is happy with where we're at, I don't necessarily need an approval. So if there's no problem with it, we'll move forward with it.
I've got a motion on my script. Do you want it or not?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the preliminary legislative priority list and the tiered system.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion by Councilwoman Borders and a second by Councilman Rhoda. Further discussion? None? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passed. We'll now move to council committee reports. Councilman Hancock, could you start us off?
Yes, Your Honor. Let's see. What have we been doing? Oh, well, we had an opportunity to meet with the Senior Citizen Endowment Board. Very productive in terms of just being able to discuss and get some things figured out. They've been struggling with their freezer. That's why we discussed that in the Finance Committee and had that approved. Very grateful for that. They were expressing a pretty immediate need. If it weren't for the fact that they had just had one quote, we probably could have acted on that immediately. It just takes some time sometimes, and I think a lot of people in the business of keeping things cold or keeping things warm are pretty busy right now because things are hot and we want them to be cold. Productive meeting in that sense. They were feeling very confident about the finances right now with the Senior Citizen Endowment Fund. Well over the corpus, which is good news. I know that that's something that they've been struggling with in the past. Makes them feel much more comfortable, us feel much more comfortable as we're dealing with it as well. So that's definitely been subject to a lot of oversight by Ms. Harris, and the board being very responsible, I guess, in terms of trying to figure out what to do with funds. So that was a good meeting, and I appreciate the council's support for the Senior Citizen Center. They definitely appreciate it as well. They have expressed that. I guess we've got solutions coming up. I think I already talked about our last meeting, so I don't think I need to talk about that much at all. I had an opportunity to get much more familiar with the master plan. It's pretty well done. They do a pretty dang fine job of setting everything out for that. I was quite impressed. I think the biggest takeaway that I had, and it's something that I don't know where this is going to go in the future, is the need to really repair that relationship with the tribe. We've had tribes. It's been a pretty strained relationship over the years, involving lots of court cases, that sort of thing, multiple lawsuits. And I think especially now that we've had this decision most recently from the Supreme Court, it's really a time that I think we can jump on what they're suggesting, which is to do what we can to improve that relationship. When we're thinking about, Riverton's identity and what sets Riverton apart in the state, that's one of the biggest things, is that we have the reservation right there. So I do really strongly hope that as we go forward that we can, as a council, focus on that. They had some really good suggestions in there, including like a committee basically geared towards working together between the city, between the tribes. I think that would be an excellent idea going forward. I know that we have so many different committees that the council members are already on, but when it comes down to it, I think that's a very important one that we haven't utilized yet.
We do have Councilman Bailey as a liaison to the tribe, but it's, at this point, we don't have an entity to speak to.
And I guess then that's the thing. And I agree, and I appreciate everything that Councilman Bailey does with that, but it's not been something that we've had a cohesive, we have, kind of like this many members, we meet this often like we do with solutions or anything like that. And so I think there is a lot that we can do there, and I just really appreciated Ayres Associates really recognizing that and pointing that out, and I think it's definitely something that hope we can do going forward, just improve that. And the other thing, I guess this has to do with solutions, not from the last meeting. I had spoken before about what I felt was the need to get an inpatient treatment facility in Riverton. And we've got a couple of different people that I'm going to be meeting with next week, and hopefully can kind of get a little bit more of a plan, or at least an idea of feasibility after that next meeting. And I'll just keep the council and solutions committee and everything updated on that. So that's all I have.
Senator Enzi will be in town, and I'm meeting with him Friday morning at 9:30 out at the tribal subdivision. So that's on the agenda. So we'll have that discussion.
Good deal.
Councilwoman Orders, do you have anything for us?
I really don't have a lot. The Solutions Committee will meet, I think, on the 15th. Just trying to gear up and get everybody excited for the rendezvous games. I just wanted to take a minute, too, to thank the police chief and the entire department for your visibility at the fair. It was amazing. The couple times I was there, they're interacting with the kids, and it was just a lot of fun. And I just think that you should be recognized for the job you guys did down there.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I would be remiss if I did not say that Cody Myers and Charlie Marshall coordinate that every year. Like, certainly we're all down there, but those two are really the two that make that happen.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's about all I have for tonight. Thanks.
Corey?
Mr. Mayor, just a couple things. We did have our Fremont County School District Recreation Board meeting last night. We still haven't had any applicants. We've got about, I believe it's $6,500 in grant funding still available that has to be used by November, spent by November. And at this time, we are also currently working on our bylaws. We'll be doing that at our next communication, looking at our bylaws and our statutes in September. I also wanted.
Excuse me. Is that 6,500 in the beautification?
Yes, sir. Beautification grant. That's correct. We had our community engagement committee meeting. Right now, all hands on deck for the Wind River Rendezvous games. I'll let Becca jump on that one a little bit. One other little personal plug, I was accepted into the Leadership Fremont County, so I was pretty excited about that. Thank you to Mia Harris, who made sure I got an application and was able to get in, so I'm super excited and looking forward to that. One other thing I wanted to mention earlier, I had talked to the mayor and a couple of the businesses on my route about the noise ordinance we had discussed. with the Jake brakes or the engine brakes. That is something I think that maybe we should revisit in the future. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, but I wanted to get that plug in there. That's really all I have right now. Like I said, the big thing is the rendezvous games. We hope to see everybody on deck. We did a little plug that'll be on the radio station tomorrow.
We'll be on the radio tomorrow. Going there tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. Thank you, Becca. I'll let Becca tell the.
What time are you on the radio?
The 7 o'clock hour, I believe. I'll verify for sure, but it's either 7 or 8 o'clock hour.
And maybe text me too. Let me know.
Your Honor, can I ask a question of Councilman Rhoda? There's a little project we've been trying to work on. I asked Matt Wright with the skate park if they had anything on their wish list when we had the community meeting. And one of the things he mentioned was a water fountain in the park because there's not one there. And the kids are having to go across the street and getting charged a lot.
$2 a pop is my understanding.
For water. So as far as the recreation board goes, would that be something, what would we have to do to try to access that?
It's possible that it would. We're more aimed towards beautification, which I know the splash pad was able to get the shades and a couple benches, I believe they got with theirs. As far as a water fountain, I would turn our attention to our city administrator, Mr. Tolstead, who's actually been working on a couple grants he has found. So I do believe we will probably be seeing some water fountains in City Park in the near future. How soon, I'm not sure, but I do know some grants have been found. I'll definitely reach out to some of the other board members and see what their thoughts are on that, and I can get back to you if that'd be okay.
That would be great.
Tony?
Looking at two funding mechanisms, and one of them actually is the beautification funding, only because there was money left over, and it might be useful. We do have, luckily, Kyle had looked at it a couple years ago, and we had some of the documents beforehand. So we have a rough estimate of approximately what it'll be. We'll update those costs. So there's a couple, and then there's another one that we'll look at probably first. Yes, that's the one.
The ditch goes right through the front of the park.
Just get a pump, probably won't cost that much. And
wouldn't cost that much. Do we have a water line that is in the city park already?
Yeah, and our city park is actually fed from a well, but there are water lines adjacent to the park.
So out of the domestic water system?
Yeah. There is domestic water that goes into the support building on the east end, and so we do have connections there.
Can we use the well, or would we have to have it tested? Is it untested?
Your Honor, I think we'd have to test it to see if we could use it for culinary. We use it mostly for irrigating the park.
Yeah. I think that's something we can probably fix pretty easy, but we'll get that on the list. Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Rebecca?
Yes, Your Honor. This week or last week, I had a couple calls from some citizens when the RPD had posted about the solicitors. Actually, had some citizens contact me in regards to perhaps coming up with something to regulate them. And one gal said that City Administrator Tony Tolstead may have some information on that, as he had something in his previous community. So I would like to see if we could direct Tony to maybe provide something to us here in the near future.
Your Honor, the conversation with regard to, we called them transient merchants once upon a time, door-to-door sales. We do have an existing ordinance. Our existing ordinance is about 3 lines long. If a home or a residence is posted as no soliciting, you're not supposed to when such property is posted. It doesn't apply if the entry is made by appointment or a contractual relationship, which stands to reason. And it doesn't apply to door hangers. And that's how it currently writes. What had happened in my previous incarnation was there were some aggressive sales tactics used by vendors that were going around town, and there was fear about the intent, and there was some conflicts that had happened in that community at that time. And that drove a conversation that ultimately required me to look into how to regulate that. There was what is commonly called the Green River Ordinance, which was found to be unlawful because it basically said, nope, nothing. So what we did is we ended up taking that and looking at it and saying, okay, we put into place a permitting process that said you can absolutely do it. However, you have to do background. You have to find a background check and do different items in order. And the intent was to say, if you want to invite somebody into your home, by all means, have at it. It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. It doesn't apply to religious organizations or the school. It doesn't apply to those. You omit those groups that are very common, and then you attempt to direct the force of that effort onto the private ones that sometimes don't have the best practices. Other ones are just fine. I mean, you don't want to lump everybody in together. And that process can be as challenging or easy as we choose. Sometimes certain companies will require background investigations. Why? Because they had to do with more home security. And that was people coming in and having access to your property, and that was something that we didn't see a lot of challenge to after that, and it did clean up some of the problems. However, you still have people show up. Like with this ordinance, just like as the ordinance that we have in place right now, this requires that if somebody shows up at your house and you don't want them there, one, tell them to leave, and B, you have to call somebody if you've posted that it's no soliciting. The difference with the one that was developed in a previous community was that it says you will not unless you have a permit, and then they can still post and say no commercial solicitation, and then it goes right back into you can't go up to their property. It really depends on how much we want to. We can take the other one and then tune it, and it's developed that way because from what I can read of the code, you would essentially be amending this section only, so it wouldn't be completely far-reaching. If that's what council wants, it is developed. It's not hard, but it's extensive.
Councilwoman Schatzer, do you want to strengthen that? Do you want to tighten that up?
I would, Your Honor. So would I make a motion to direct staff to?
Do you want a motion, or do you just want that guidance?
Guidance would be fine for now.
If we.
So the ask is that we look at tightening that ordinance. Last time I remember the real stickler there is that you have to post your property, and people need to understand that if they truly do feel like they don't want to have any solicitation, they have to post where someone can see as they approach their house that the residence is posted, and until they do that, they don't have any teeth, and so. But if you would look at that and see if there's a way that we can tighten that up, and I suppose do you have a certain business that is the problem?
No, she and I, when I asked the gals, they didn't have specifics, or they didn't tell me specifics, or didn't want to give me specifics.
So
I could find out.
Do we have a way to get a permit through Eric to come into town and get a permit to solicit in Riverton? No?
Not really.
So I suppose that's probably the guidance. Maybe you could look at that and tell us if that's a worthwhile, then we could take a company like Vivint and say, you're going to have to go to City Hall and get the permit for tracting Riverton out, and this is how you do that, and set up that ordinance. Do you want to get that heavy into the discussion?
My personal opinion, I think, is just the way we've got it with the making sure people are informed. All you need is a no soliciting sign. And if somebody does that, I don't know. I just feel like a permit can be a bit heavy-handed.
Is it no soliciting? Will a sign of no soliciting work, or does it have to be an actual posted sign?
It has to is posted with a sign prohibiting solicitation. So if you say no soliciting, you could say the other one, there's no soliciting, period. No commercial soliciting is usually meant to imply if you're selling something. That's usually been enough from what I understand to make it apply.
Would it warrant, or would it be enough if we put that on our Facebook site to tell people how to post their property, or that they need to post their property to stop those solicitations?
Your Honor, yes, I think that would be a great first step, and I think it should be done. We can absolutely do that. Maybe for the sake of having a better conversation, can I, if I may, let me take a look at this. Maybe what was developed before, that was developed during a boom time, and there was a lot of energy money moving and a lot of people in, and a lot. I mean, it was happening a lot. And the confrontations drove it, and the fear kind of drove a lot of different parts of that at times. Let me take a look at what was done and what's been established and what's held up, and maybe bring something back to you if we think as staff that there's, hey, here's maybe not this step, but something here that just makes this word work a little bit better. That way we're not running just another permit, maybe, but we do have some ability to enforce the problem ones. Let's not go too heavy-handed on right off key.
Your Honor, can I say something?
Who is it?
Chief.
Chief, yes.
So this particular one were three individuals from Slovenia. They were foreign exchange students that were selling books. They came in, we actually read them, the city ordinance asked them to be more respectful of people. I can tell you just from being here for 19 years, the two that we really get complaints on is a security company that I won't name, and then a vacuum cleaning service, selling vacuums. And typically, we will get over 100 complaints on both of those. So this particular one, they actually were nice enough to come to the PD. We probably spent 15, 20 minutes with them, kind of explained how things should go. And so they, at least to us, they seemed very respectful.
I had one of them at my house, and he was real respectful and was pleasant to be around. So.
Your Honor,
Yep.
and the two categories that we had, that the chief denotes, were exactly the categories that drove the previous ones. That, I mean, dead on.
So you'll do some research and come back to us and tighten it, or tell us what you suggest we do.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mayor, just one more question, if I could. Chief, if you have a no soliciting sign posted and they come to your house still soliciting, is it best just to call the RPD?
It is, and we can actually do a no trespass for that. So as the private homeowner, you have a right to no trespass for that. And so certainly if they disregard that, let us know, and we will come and trespass them.
Thank you.
And I think it needs to be said that, and people need to know that don't open your doors if you don't know who they are. And if they insist, dial the police and they'll be there momentarily. I have confidence in them. So don't allow them in and then try to fight them back out.
I did tell them that as well. You know, I said, did you call the police department? You know, because that was my first, if I felt threatened, I would call the police department. So have faith in our law enforcement that they could handle that. Speaking of the chamber, they're doing a lot of great things, as I keep mentioning every single week. I don't know if you guys have noticed the difference in their weekly email blast, but there's a lot of good information in there. They were very successful last week for the Alive at 5 with the farmers market. It was a really great time. A lot of people, good music, good vendors, all that kind of stuff. Pause, they're doing their Paws and Pearls annual event September 7th, so those tickets are on sale now. They're running an ad in the paper every day, so take a look at that ad and get your tickets for that great event. Community Engagement Committee, we met last Monday, and talked about different events that we want to happen. We mentioned how incredible Riverton has done this summer with creating events. I heard someone make a comment that there was not much to do in Riverton, and I said, I could tell somebody, what I did in one day, and I'm like, there's nothing to do. There's so many things to do in Riverton. It's been amazing this summer. So I don't know if it was the Community Engagement Committee that kicked that, or just Riverton just getting alive. It's been amazing. Of course, we discussed the Rendezvous Games. Deadline for the Rendezvous Games registration is this Friday, so make sure you make it to the city before then. If you need a registration form, let me know. If you are an individual wanting to participate, but you don't have a business or an organization to sponsor you, there's been a few businesses that have reached out saying that we will sponsor a team if you can gather a team for us. So if you want to participate, you just need somewhere to go, let me know, and I'll get you on a good team. But other than that, Mayor, that's all I got.
We need to fill our team.
We do. I think Tony was on that.
So are you two guys jumping out?
I'll be hosting, Mayor. I'm unable.
Okay. And you're the head of the organization, right?
I wish I
We would
could.
win for sure, though.
Like, sure. I've been practicing since last winter.
Tim, are you in?
Got a wedding to go to. I was wanting to do it. It's a long story.
You're getting married again?
What's that?
You're getting married again, or?
No.
Okay. Carla, you want in?
Yes, I'm in, and my husband will be
Oh,
in.
fabulous. That would be a real help. So there's three of us.
Well, you've
Megan,
got Rick
you in?
over here, too, who
Megan,
don't see often.
your head's going the wrong direction?
You got to know somebody in this.
Anybody else want in?
Your Honor, I did. I had planned on it. However, they changed the flight for our exchange student to Jackson on that day as opposed to flying in here. So I cannot, but I'll be there in the morning to help.
Chief, can you play?
Your Honor, I will be winning the barbecue cook-off.
Winning second place.
But I will put an email out to the PD. There are several guys that do Spartan races and things of that nature. I'm sure that we can.
Could you please?
Fill it, absolutely. How many positions do we
Three
need?
more, right?
3?
6.
More?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
3 more ringers, if you can find them.
Yes, Your Honor. I will.
I've got some ideas. I could tell you 3 that.
Scott Comers will win it for everybody.
Single-handedly.
That's
Fabulous.
Becca had a really good idea that if you weren't able to make it, you have to get a team to take your spot.
Yes. So Tim's already gathering another team since he said he committed and then uncommitted, so he's responsible for coming with the whole team.
Tony, I think we're going to have to task you with the same thing.
So how
do my best.
How do you sit for teams? Are we-
Currently, we only have 3 officially registered, but I can tell you that I've had a ton of interest. People have been emailing me and texting me all week for registration forms. So just like with the Winter Games, they'll come in on Friday.
Super, guys. We need the help, so come and play. It'll be a lot of fun.
Mia,
Anything else?
Oh, yes, the barbecue cook-off as well. So as of right now, I think before we talked, there was 4 or 5 people registered for the barbecue cook-off. So if you want to barbecue, let us know. There's no entry fee. And what you're doing is you're just going down there with your barbecue and doing samples. We're going to have food vendors there, so you're not feeding the masses. You're just feeding those who want to come and put some money in your jar and try some good food. So, of course, you will no entry fee. However, you will win a prize if you win. So there's some pretty stiff competition, but I have faith in the community that, I don't know, you could compete at least.
Before we move off, anybody else in staff want to play? Eric? Mia?
Won't be here.
I won't be here that weekend either. But I was going to say best wishes if Councilwoman Border's husband's going to be on because he'll do well in any tug of war, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Training
And
experience.
Kristen says she'll play, so we only need 2, Chief. We need but 2 ringers. Yeah, Chief, we need 2 officers.
Yes, sir.
Ringers, with their cars and their guns.
Absolutely.
Andrea's already on a team, by the way. Andrea Lewin.
Your Honor, I would like Councilman Schatz to refrain from the judging the barbecue as her husband is one of the contestants.
He's very good at what he does. So
Well, that could be a good idea. I have a whole list of things, but we got a big meeting behind us, so I'll go quick. But the meeting for the Riverton Economic Group met, and Tony gave the presentation on the website and did a wonderful job, and I appreciate his efforts on that and all of the staff's efforts. We get a lot of great comments on the website, and I know that Megan's a big part of that, Kristen's a big part of that. All of you have had a big part of that, and it is going well. I did get a comment about a fake site. It's kind of interesting, and so it is out there, and so try to steer people to the right site, and there's some information there. So we also had a real interesting meeting with WYODOT about federal and the ticketing process. I believe we're in the 80 number last Thursday of tickets passed out. And
Your Honor, Officer Dixon has written over 200 by himself in a left-hand turn.
So there I am wrong again. But with that said, in the meeting, we had two people that were really kind of disappointed that they got ticketed. And so what I would like to encourage people to understand is that, wow, that has really taken effort down there. And when we get in that room and we get to talking about that left-hand turn has a lot of usage. It's for the safety of those workers, the safety of the flaggers. It isn't just to try to inconvenience people. And so we really are asking you to drive on through, turn around in the Walmart parking lot, and come back through to make the correct turn. And we are out, it's obvious we're out in force and trying to make that work. And we're doing that because the Wyoming Highway Department has asked for it, not that we want to do that and ticket our citizens. So I appreciate the chief and the work that they're doing. I appreciate Wyodot. There's just a lot of real good work that's happening there. We need to sit down in time, and I'm fortunate to get to go to FTAG where I get to meet with all the other mayors, but we have some taxation problems that are going to come up. And we need to try to understand those the best we can and where our funding comes from and understand that before it happens to us so that we're on the front of that instead of the back of it. And we need to do some work there. And that was a great meeting with the mayors. Carter Napier was there. If anybody remembers Carter Napier, he's a city manager for the city of Casper. And he was in attendance to that meeting, and it was really fun to talk with him and get his feel. Along with that, Eric had asked me to call and talk to the mayor of Casper, and I talked to Carter, both, and they're going to try to move their balloon rally off of our date. I said we had it for 39 years, and could you possibly go in front of us or behind us? And Mayor Powell said he'd do his very best. He didn't have total control over that because the county has a lot of that. And so Carter said he would push it from his position also. So I did what you asked. I'd also like to commend Eric Carr for his effort. A gentleman by the name of Keys, Mr. Keys, has a temporary RV pad behind his mother's house that he uses for maybe 30 days a year. And then he was tired of paying the sewer fee for the full year. And Eric came up with the idea to put a sewer lock on that pipe, and he's going to pay $34, and he's still going to come see his mother. So it's nice to have that done. I appreciate your efforts there. Kicking Trash worked with us spraying weeds, and we went from 8th Street to the old McDonald's site. McDonald's came in today, Rebecca said, and knocked down all the weeds that we sprayed, and we've got communication from them. That gas station is underway, and it's surprising. It was an October completion. Am I correct in that, Eric?
The construction is supposed to start on the 12th of August, and they expect to be done by the end of October.
Yeah. So that's good news. I had the good fortune of being a judge at the fair. That was fun. We did another thing that I think is really important. We called the Hill Street Apartments and enumerated the police problems we were having up there. And we had a phone call this week with the management company, and I was really pleased with that feedback. Tony was on the call, and so was Captain Romero. And they pledged support to our side of that, and we'll work to see if we can't help clean that up. And then I would like to also thank Tony and Kickin' Trash for helping me with the weeds. We've been able to cover Main Street from the park clear out to Majors and some of Broadway and Federal from the park clear down to the river. And so that money needs to be mentioned. That money was donated to the city by Ida Inc. And anybody that has a use for a herbicide to spray their own weeds, if they'd get a hold of us, we would supply that for them. And if there's a need for people to, if there's somewhere that we need to help you, if you'd contact us, we would try to help you with those weeds. And it does help. And I would like to encourage anybody, I was amazed when we went down Main Street how well the businesses are taking care of the majority of their own weeds. And then we move off of Main Street and we get into the secondary streets and they got some problems. And so I would encourage you, your yard keepers that do a good job with your yards, look left and right and help your neighbors with their weeds. And let's get looking as best we can look. If you need help, give us a call at City Hall. My number is 851-1627. Tony's been out with me. Tony's going to go out tomorrow and spray weeds. Anybody that wants to, we have equipment. Come and get the product and we'll get it spread out.
I think I saw you yesterday, didn't I, on Broadway, knocking them down without spraying them?
Shovel. I got tired of the weed sprayer. And they were getting really big. That one Tony about hurt his back on it was about 1.5 inches root.
They can also message the Kick and Trash Facebook page as well. I've had several people do that for locations, so that's fine too if that's something they want to do.
And Kick and Trash is doing a wonderful job. You know, we were spraying weeds and Rebecca wouldn't stop picking up trash. I don't know what the deal was, but she just was insistent that we got the trash along with the weeds. And so and it's fun. It really is. It's enjoyable to go out with community members and do good things. And so I would encourage everybody to keep those things going. And I appreciate staff for the support that they give us. I am going to come with a list of locations at our city locations that need some appearance, and then I'll do that tomorrow. We're in need of time. So with that said, back to our once again I skipped Tony. Tony, would you do yours, please? I have one after that too. So
I have one item. FORCC meeting is Monday at 11 a.m. Airport Board is Friday at 8 a.m. We did meet with the rodeo up at the casino with the organizers for the rodeo from this last year. Chief Murphy has pointed out that it went off without a hitch. His people were all present and worked in conjunction with security. A great event, turned out really well. They're already starting into planning for the next year and looking to make it better. That's been a very good event, and the planning has been well done, so we appreciate their help. And then the only other item council had directed previously with regard to the feeding of animals to pursue the 56 permit. We drafted an item, sent it for initial comment. That initial comment was received. We have found that we do need to make a number of changes that we thought we would be able to write that we will do X, and they said no. Like processors, you got to name who you process. Who's going to take it? Okay, I got to name who's going to take it. And we also ran into some challenges like where are you going to store it? Because you could have to store it for 3 weeks before the test comes back. And so that starts getting into cost that we didn't plan for. So we're trying to work through some of those to give you a little bit more information before we go down the line. Ultimately, we can put everything in place, apply for the permit, and not exercise it, and have it in place. That's a long conversation, but I did want council to know that we are making progress on it. However, the initial idea of, we'll apply for a permit, became a little more complex than we expected. That's all, Your Honor.
thank you. I had one more item that's on the agenda, and that is the Complete Count Committee, the census for 2020. We took that to FTAG, the Association of Governments, and their director is going to find us a chairman countywide, and then we'll put on members from each community to try to get that to be a countywide effort. So that's where that sits. Any other comments? We do have an executive session. The chair would entertain a motion to convene into next executive session for the purpose of litigation, consider litigation to which our governing body is or may be party in accordance with Wyoming Statute 16-4-405A and 3 I's.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Hancock and second by Councilwoman Schatz. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Those invited into the session are City Administrator Tony Tolstead, Rick Sollers, Kyle Butterfield, and Kristen Watson, please.